What's up? I'm Taylor Haase from DK Pittsburgh Sports. First day of free agency, relatively quiet day for the Penguins. We're going to be here talking about it. Anyway, development camp 2 is underway. That's kind of taken a backseat to free agency, but I don't know how long this is going to go. Going to try to keep it under an hour this time. We can talk about anything on your mind. Obviously, the news of the day. First day of free agency. If you're joining us, this is your first time, you can join the chat on Twitter or YouTube. I'll see the comments. They show up in the little sidebar. You can put them on the bottom of the screen. If you're on Facebook, you actually have to leave a comment. Works the same way. All shows up the same place for me. Welcome, Andrew. Starting off new member. Good day to do that, I guess. But let's see. We already have comments coming in. Andrew also says, I feel like we downgraded on D. Here's hoping Brunick steps in and becomes a day one starter. Seems like the path for Brunick is even harder just because it's not clear. He's a right-handed defenseman. The right side seems pretty shored up with, Carlson, Letang. Van Riemsdyk is a right-handed defenseman. He does play both sides, and then Korsak would seem to be ahead of Van Riemsdyk. Spezza talked today about how, Brunick has played the left side before. It would feel unlikely that he's going to break into the NHL on his offside, but he is an option. I think they're just not trying to rush him. It seems likely that he's going to start next season in Wilkes-Barre and probably work his way up. But the big news of the day, right? Rotten Egg says bye-bye Boko. People who didn't see, Boko Mama did just sign in Florida. Probably going to be in the AHL with Charlotte there, but sad to see him go, right? As a human, he was one of the nicer guys to deal with. Great story. He did, the Masterton nomination. That was just because of how good of a person he is, and I mean how cool of a story too, right? At his age, this is the Penguins. That's the most games he's ever gotten with any NHL team. He still worked his way up, but Connor joins as a member too. Welcome. Anthony says, what time is Friday's camp scrimmage? It is development camp. It's going to be at noon. Free at the Lemieux complex, open to the public. There's one more day of practices tomorrow. It's not a whole lot to watch, these practices. Not that interesting. They're in 3 different groups. It's a lot of very detailed skating instruction or skills instruction. They do more head-to-head drills that are a little interesting, but for the most part, it's you got to be a real prospect dork to come out, tomorrow and see and actually be interested in it. But Friday, the actual tournament, I believe it's gonna be 3-on-3. It's gonna be pretty interesting. Pens Road Warrior, thanks for doing a live shot tonight. I pretty much liked all the signings except Kuzmenko. Don't see what line he fits on. I mean, I think he's a pretty direct replacement for Anthony Mantha. They're very similar, right? Kuzmenko and Mantha both, had a history of putting up points. Not recently. When Mantha came in, he was coming off. He really didn't play that last season. Kuzmenko had a down year. He also had an injury. He had a knee injury too. Mantha had a knee injury. So they're both coming off injury, but both do have a history. Kuzmenko had 70-something points in the 22-23 season. So, with Mantha, they were able to recapture that. It's just going to be a matter of, can they do that with Kuzmenko? Now, where does he play? You also have Nick Robertson coming in. You have young guys pushing for spots. So it's going to be hard to find a spot for a few of these guys, but I also think that just means that you're going to see moves still to come. If they re-sign all of their restricted free agents that they qualified, that's going to put them at 48 contracts. That's a lot to go into the season with. One of those is iffy, Alex Alexia. If they qualified him, he might still go to Russia. So, but either way, you're looking at 47 or 48 if they qualify all of those guys. So I think you're still going to see trades. They have too many wingers. They don't have really any great left-handed defensemen. Something that Spezza talked about today was about, their confidence and Sam Girard having a better season next year. Now, like when Girard comes in, he had been with Colorado his whole career. It is an adjustment playing in a new system, new teammates for the first time in his career. But what also wasn't known that Spezza revealed today is that Girard came in injured. So he was up against a lot. He didn't have a great, finish to the season. He's good in the playoffs, but since the trade, like overall, wasn't great. But knowing what we know now, that would seem to suggest you'd think that he has to have a better start to the season next year. So let's see, yeah. Shabby says claims are still more trades to come. Pretty much would suggest that. Yeah, Samu Pens expect way more from Girard given Spezza's comments. He also talked about Graves changing his approach this summer and how they were very open with him about, he hasn't lived up to expectations. I don't know exactly what that means, like what he's doing differently this summer, but they seem pretty confident that maybe Graves is going to bounce back. I guess you have to say that if he can't move out his contract. But Main Bub, hate to see Cookie go, especially to the Flyers. Yeah, Noel Acciari, 2-year deal with the Flyers. I believe 2.8 was the cap hit. Good to see that from him. Looking back, maybe in the first year of his deal, it definitely looked like that contract was going to be a tough one by the end of it, but it really wasn't at all. He, especially this past season, it seemed like he really bounced back here in that deal with the Flyers. It's going to be an interesting dynamic with Zegras, right? He tried to kill Zegras in that October game. Kyle says, feel like we need to move out a contract or two to open up contract space. Yeah, contract space is the big one. Like the cap space, you're looking at probably around 25 million right now. They're a few million above the floor, but it's that contract limit that is tough. Rotten Egg says Connor Clifton's a Bruin now. You knew he wasn't going to come back. Happy for him. He gets a 5-year deal. Oh, he gets a 2-year deal with the team that he played 5 years with before. So very familiar with Boston. I saw he did like the Zoom press conference after he signed, and he already had his Bruins shirt on because he played there for 5 years. But he gets 2 years. Anthony says they're definitely losing a lot of sandpaper. Clifton, Wotherspoon, Acciari, Boko. Should we be concerned about a lack of toughness? I think some of the guys you bring in have that. I mean, like you're bringing back Lizotte, Dewar, who have that to their game. You look at some of the young guys, if they can find a spot somehow, can bring that. Like Ville Koivunen, when he's at his best in Wilkes-Barre, he's bringing that. Lack of toughness, though, I don't think so. Like, I don't think that was like a big concern for them last year, and I don't think like Boko played 2 games for them during the season. That's too bad for Wilkes-Barre, but Clifton wasn't a regular in the lineup. I don't think Acciari was playing enough to be like a difference maker in terms of toughness. Wotherspoon for sure. I mean, he would be the biggest loss in that regard, but I think you'll just see other guys step up. Jamstorm, Freddie Anderson, and Stuart Skinner rotation in Winnipeg could be interesting someday. Anderson signed in Edmonton. Skinner did leave. He's in Winnipeg. You knew he wasn't going to come back. Anderson's going to be rotating with Tristan Jarry. Anthony says, I like the Nick Robertson trade. Speedy guy, good production from a third line. There's a lot of guys who you're like, yeah, they're not good on the third line, and they don't have enough spots for those guys. Like Soderblom's going to be back. Where's he going to play? I know a lot of people, the Robertson trade, a lot of people's minds immediately went to like, oh, they're using him as bait to lure in Jason Robertson. I don't think that's the motivation behind that at all. I think the very simple explanation is that Dubas drafted Nick Robertson in 2019. Spezza, he also worked in Toronto at the time. They're very familiar with Nick Robertson. They like him a lot. He became available this morning. That's the first time that opportunity presented itself, and they jumped on it. So, yeah, the Nick Robertson connection is just that he played for Dubas before. I don't think they're using him to try to get his brother here. Daniel says, when Dubas says they're building by boring brick, does that truly mean there will not be a big move? I think so. I don't think they're ruling anything out. But if you go back to his comments on Friday after day one of the draft, they've looked at going, like, they're trying to bring in ideally like mid-20s NHL ready, like, impact players. And he said, but you look at, the cost of those guys, like alluding to Byram and before the draft picks, like, that were getting thrown around, the Penguins just didn't have those. Even if they wanted to move the first round pick, even if they wanted to move a couple first round picks, they just did not have like the fourth overall pick the teams were looking for. And then he also said, you look at the players the teams are asking for, they're the kinds of players that the Penguins are trying to keep or like continue to add, like Igor Shinnikov. He didn't name him, but it's like guys in that age range that teams are looking for. So it's going to be hard to make a big move. I wouldn't like be surprised if they find a way to make something like that happen, but it does seem like you're going to see a lot of these smaller moves. Pens Fanatic says, when looking at how thin the left side is looking right now in terms of NHL caliber D-men, anything left in free agency worth a gamble, or any ideas on who could be available to bring in? It's good. That's when it's going to have to be via a trade too. Like Ryan Shea might have been the best available defenseman, left-handed defenseman on the market, and he signed at Edmonton for those who didn't see. I think it was 4 years. Let me see. I have it somewhere. I think it was 4 years, $4 million, 5 years, $4 million, one of those. 5 years, $4 million. So he hit free agency looking for term and salary. Like, the Penguins were willing to give him the money. They had that, but they just didn't want to lock themselves into guys who are at that age. So there's really nothing out there left that would be an improvement, because you have a lot of second, maybe third pairing left-handed defensemen. You really don't have anyone that stands out as a top pairing left-handed defenseman. Like, at this point, I think it would be Girard, just because of like who the competition is. But it would have to be via trade. I don't have any ideas on who that could be. It's not like there's like lists out there. It would be a younger guy, ideally. Jay Penguins, would you see a world where Erik Karlsson goes to Dallas as part of a Jason Robertson deal? That's my way to justify the 76 right-handed D-man the Penguins brought in today. I don't think Erik Karlsson wants to leave. He has a full no movement clause. I think he's very happy here. He loves playing for Muse. I don't see him intentionally walking if he doesn't have to. Let's see. Random hockey guy. I think we see a Chinakhov extension before the weekend. What's today, Wednesday? Maybe. That's one where there's not like a big rush. I also don't think it should be that complicated with Chinakhov. They have a lot of restricted free agents they need to sign. 7 at least, maybe 8 if Alexeyev comes back, and if he does, that's a Wilkes-Barre guy. But that's a big one. Shilov's is a big one. I think if you see any of the RFAs signed first, I think it's Shilov, just because he's in town. I've been seeing him around the Lemieux complex during development camp. He was working out with Ilya Solovyov and Noel Acciari. So Acciari was in town because his wife was pregnant. She just had the baby like a week and a half ago, I think, at this point. So that's why he was in town. But guys who are in town, even if they're not Penguins, like they can skate at the Lemieux complex. So I don't know how long Acciari is going to be in town, but Probably should move his stuff out of the locker room because that's a flyer. Anna West, good point. Sid loses his second seatmate on the plane with Cookie gone. Yeah, Nolachari sat next to Crosby on the plane, so prime real estate just opened up. Wonder who's gonna get that. It's him says, really hoping Brunick and Pickering can make the squad this year. It's gonna be hard. You know, the quality of left-handed defensemen above Pickering, it's not a lot in terms of quality, but there's a decent number of them, so that's gonna be tough. Brunick, like we said too, there's probably 4 right-handed defensemen ahead of him at this point. He can play on the left. I don't know if you want him breaking in on the left. So I don't think there's gonna be harm in letting him play in Wilkes-Barre a bit. You don't have to rush him. Kyle Lindgren says, certainly would like to see Novak moved and an improved second-line center brought in and a top 4 left-handed defenseman. I don't think Novak's going to net you all that, but you'd have to include other assets, maybe young guys, maybe draft picks. But I think if you look at the current forwards they have signed and who would feel likely to be moved in potential trades, Novak probably towards the top of that list. If you're a contending team, I don't think he's your second line center. And ideally, you'd bring a center back. Like you do have Kindle. Kindle can move up. Hendricks Lapierre is a center, but I think if they're going to try to be competitive, you have to bring someone better in. So you don't have to rush, Ben Kindle. And I don't like if you look, Lapierre really didn't do a whole lot of scoring in Washington, but Justin Brezzo would be another guy who I'd include in that expendable guy you'd look to maybe trade if you can, just to free up a spot. Patsky says, were you surprised by all the moves the Caps did? And do you think the Penguins can compete with them with their current roster? I have not stopped moving like all day. It's like we had development camp this morning and then free agency opens and then it's like constant moves and then Spezza and then writing. I've like kind of kept up with what's going around the league. Like the little details. I haven't looked at the Caps roster. I think the only move I've seen is like Vinny Darnay today. But I mean, like you look around like the rest of the East, like everyone's gotten better. The Caps too, you still might see them bring back Ovechkin. So I don't think the Penguins right now are a playoff team. But I also don't think they're done. Jay Penguin says, was the end of the Wilkes-Barre year for Pickering so impressive that he wound up back in management's favor? Spezza talked about being happy with his season as a whole. Like they're definitely not out on him, and like back in management's favor. I don't think he was ever like out of management's favor. He's still so young, and defensemen typically take longer than forwards. And he was also a 21st overall pick. It's not like he's people ask, I feel like every now and then, like, is he a bust yet? I think he's kind of on the trajectory you would have expected for a guy who was a late first rounder, a defenseman breaking in. The thing with Pickering too is when he got picked, like he's very tall. He also shot up in height like 2 years before he got drafted. He was, I think, like 5'8" or something like that. So the whole the struggle for him is like he's had to fill out physically, and that's just going to take time. But Andrew says, I will say for the price Shea signed for and no retention on Nurse, I'm okay with not getting either. Yeah, Darnell Nurse, the Penguins were on his initial, approved list for a trade out of Edmonton. Today, he expanded that list, put the Sharks on it, and they got him. They sent 2 defensemen back. I can't remember who they were, but yeah, either no salary retained. So I don't. We've talked about Nurse a lot. I was never like advocating for it, talking about it as an option just because it seemed like something that they were considering, but I don't know if He would be your answer on the top side, top pairing on the left side. Yeah, a lot of people glad they did not get Nurse. Ross says resign Mantha. I don't think that's gonna happen. I don't know why Mantha hasn't been signed yet. I know the Penguins would have been willing to give him a 1-year deal. Mantha's looking for term. He's looking to cash in. It's like his last big contract. You figure, and he earned it. I don't know what kind of options he's weighing. I haven't heard like anyone mention him. But like re-sign him for what? Like they have way too many like third line wingers as it is, or guys who could even play on the second line. I just don't see a spot for him. It would seem like Kuzmenko is the replacement for him in a lot of ways. Kyle Lindgren says would also love to see Hallander able to return and maybe play in the third line himself. Showed promise early last year before the blood collapse. He's back in Sweden. He's skating. He's working out with. He's using the facilities of his former SHL team, and it's Timrå. So he's still signed for a year. They still have to decide whether he's able to come back and like be cleared to play. He hasn't actually been cleared yet. The fact that he's working on skating, that's a good thing. I think, if he is cleared and he does come back and there's no health concerns, he's going to have to probably start in Wilkes-Barre just because like he did, start out well last year, of course, but then after like not playing for most of the year, not skating for most of the year, that's gonna be tough. Penn's Road Warrior says, do you think fewer preseason games is bad news for the young guys fighting for a spot? I mean, the number of guys who would play in like all 6 or like 5, even 5 preseason games, very low anyway. They have 4 now. You figure maybe those first 2 are very prospect heavy. The last 2 more NHL heavy with some of the contenders as far as young guys they get in. They know these guys. Like they Koivunen, McGroarty. I don't know if they would show in like an additional preseason game that like front office coaches don't already know. Development camp question. Anthony says, not sure I've ever seen twins that identical. Have you been able to differentiate the Ruck brothers in the short span of camp yet? Yeah, so like like a week before the draft, because like the Penguins were really one of the only teams that had 2 draft picks in the range that both brothers were supposed to be taken. Like they didn't have to reach for either of those guys. I know like some people have called it like a gimmick or because they took both of them, but like Marcus, the one they took in the second round, he maybe even fell a little bit. Like it's cool they're brothers, but they also just got 2 draft picks where they were supposed to go. But point being, like a week before the draft, I was looking at a bunch of pictures of the 2 of them. Like if they both come here, am I going to be able to tell them apart? And I felt like, like looking at them enough, I'm like, okay, I can see little differences after the draft too. And we got like a whole new crop of pictures and video from doing like the Zoom calls with them. They're little things. I feel like I can now. If you're talking to them up close, Marcus has a freckle like above his lip, like a bigger one that Liam does not have, and Liam has one on the side of his nose. If you're face to face with them, that I think is the biggest difference for me. If you look at him smile, Marcus smiles a little crooked. Liam has a bigger smile. He has like rounder features than Marcus does. So they've said that their teammates and juniors say that their hair is a big tell. Marcus wears his like a little bit higher and maybe like push back more. So I mean, they've been here. They've been a Penguins for not even a week. I feel like by the time they make it here and you see more of them, It'll come. Dougie says, I'm having trouble understanding how the Penguins let Achari go. Were they bidders at all? I thought he was such a key piece. I don't think there's a bidding war for Achari. Just his age, it didn't make sense to bring him back. Jamie says, only guy I see returning after next season is Sid. I mean, they have a number of guys under contract beyond that. So I don't know if you're talking about like the free agents, because Sid is entering the last year of his contract. Today they became eligible to re-sign him to an extension. Same thing with Carlson. Carlson's in the last year. But Spezza said nothing to report as far as that. Mima, do you think Spezza doing the press conference and not Dubas is an indication that Dubas is giving him more responsibility and show him that he has the chance to become GM in Pittsburgh under Dubas? No, I just think like Spezza, people like read way too into that, like that Dubas wasn't coming. Like, oh my God, he's working on a trade for Jason Robertson. That was always the plan. Like days ago, they were telling like PR was telling us that we're most likely getting Spezza today. It seemed like because they did not plan on doing anything massive enough to warrant Dubas talking. I think Dubas talked Friday. He did not want to talk today. Knew they weren't going to do anything so crazy that he should be the one to answer for it. Spezza's talked before. This wasn't the first time we've heard from Spezza. Spezza talked last year during development camp about, I mean, it was mostly about the prospects. So it wasn't like July 1st. I don't think anyone talked on July 1st last year from management, at least like not after they made the signings. We definitely didn't get Dubas on July 1st. So I just think Dubas didn't want to talk. I don't think, it's not like he was working on something, and I don't think it, but the question, like, could he become the GM under Dubas? I don't think there's any reason for Dubas to step back, because that would be Dubas stepping back if he gives up the GM title. It's also not even clear, like, what would that mean? Because, like, you look at when, like, the Canucks setup was Rutherford as the president of hockey ops and Patrick Alvin was the GM, and those were separate roles. Rutherford was still like the guy driving the bus there and behind a lot of the moves. It's not like these titles have defined responsibilities and you need to have two, or like you even need to have a president of hockey ops. Everyone's just making it up, like what the job entails. If Dubas wants to be the one making the moves, he's going to do that. And if you want Spezza to have a bigger role, he can do that as the assistant GM. Daniel says, are you surprised that Mantha is still unsigned? Is he looking for too many dollars, term, or both perhaps? I have no idea what he's looking for other than he wants multiple years. I'd imagine at his age, he probably wants to go to a team where he can win too. I don't know how many of those teams would have an opening for him and the money and want to give him the term. So a little surprised that he's unsigned just because he was one of the better forwards available, but also not like shocked. Cass says, just remembered we have Jake Livanovich. He shoots left, doesn't he? He does. I would still have him behind Pickering in the depth chart. He's gonna start in Wilkes-Barre. I think people maybe overestimated his readiness because they gave him the game at the end. Giving him that game at the end of last season, I don't think that was an indication of, where he is. I think he was an undrafted free agent coming out of college. When you're negotiating with entry-level contracts, there's no wiggle room for term. Like the number of years is preset based on their age. Salary is capped at the max. He was going to get the max salary. If you are the team's negotiating, then there's really not much you can offer him other than opportunity. So if, he had several teams coming for him and it seemed like he did, if the Penguins are like, we'll you sign with us, we'll, let you get your NHL debut in a week. That's a pretty, cool thing. So I think he's gonna need some time. Matt says, "What are your thoughts on the two contracts for Trevor Van Riemsdyk and Ryan Shea? I take Shea over TVR. Shea is 29, give or take, and 5 years at $4 million, or 35-year-old TVR at 2 years, $4 million." Thoughts? I think they'd take the 2 years over the 5 years. I think listening on it, like every time we've heard from Dubas, but then also Spezza today, they were really prioritizing that flexibility and not wanting to be locked into very long deals. So I think in an ideal world, Van Riemsdyk is your 7th defenseman because he can play both sides. I'm not too worried about the money because, it's $4 million a lot for maybe your 7th defenseman, probably. But they have so much cap space, I don't think it matters. By the time they're going to be a cap team, with the cap going up too, I don't think Van Riemsdyk would still be on the team. Cass, president of the Connor Clifton fan club. Connor Clifton did sit on the plane to Sweden with Sid. Connor Clifton, big loss in the locker room. Jabby thought Spezza doing the presser was a bit weird. Like I said, I did not, because they were telling us for days now that he was going to do that, probably because they weren't going to do anything big enough to warrant Dubas talking. If they would have made a major move, Dubas probably would have talked. But like I said, Dubas didn't talk at all July 1st last year. Spezza definitely talked at some point last year. Now, was it a press conference? No, they had us all stand around him outside the locker room. Doing the formal press conference made it, I guess, look a bit more serious. But like Spezza's talked several times. Like I remember talking to him. He might have talked twice last year. I remember getting him in the locker room one time and then outside the locker room. So I don't think that was like anything to worry about. Aiden says Vinny Darnay may have been the worst contract of the day. He did go to the Capitals. I don't remember the term, or I think I did talk to someone about this like at the time. Whatever was he signed for? I think some fans just have like a skewed view of like what the going rates are for guys like this now, because the cap is going up and a lot of deals are looking crazy with the cap going up. I think Penguins fans also in particular have this very like warped idea of value because Sid has been making 8.7 almost his entire career. I mean, since he's been out of his entry-level contract. When like guys far worse than Sid, was, at his peak are making like 10. So I think people's just idea of like value needs to shift. Anthony says was wondering how they felt about Pickering as he was a Hextall pick. I don't think that matters. Miroshov was a Hextall pick. I don't think that matters. Muran says, what are the options on left-handed defense at the moment? Seems pretty few or next to nothing at the moment. I mean, if you're looking internally, you got Gerard, you got Solovyov, Ryan Graves. Van Riemsdyk can play on the left. Caleb Jones, probably going to be in Wilkes-Barre just because he really just did not play this year. People who forget Caleb Jones. He started out this past season on the third pairing with Brunick. He got slew-footed by Brad Marchand in Florida. in October. It was very early into the season. He missed some time. He came back. He went to Wilkes-Barre on a conditioning stint, suffered an entirely different injury. That one was an upper body injury. Now he's out again. In the meantime, he tests positive. He fails like the testing for the performance enhancing drug program, something he said he was taking to recover from the injury. Suspended basically for the rest of the season. He was eligible to come back in the last week of the regular season, but at that point, he was still injured. They sent him home. He's going to be in Wilkes-Barre, I'd imagine, if you don't find a way to like move him. But yeah, next to nothing. So I think it would have to be a trade. Matt says, with the roster shaped the way it is now, do you think Larkin being a center is a better fit than Robertson? I think Larkin comes cheaper than Robertson too. I'd be happy to get either. Just curious of your thoughts. Yeah, I think like Larkin at this point, probably not a number one center, but number two center, he could do that. The thing is, he does have a full no movement clause. Does he want to come here? Based on his initial teams, it seems like no. There's also no rush to move him. Like the Red Wings don't have to move him, even if he wants out. Be a little awkward if he comes back, but if that's like the best move for the Red Wings, maybe you see that happen. Maybe if you're Larkin too, like Nurse did, as the offseason goes on, none of the teams you wanted to go to want you. Maybe you expand that list. Larkin's a Michigan guy. He's from there. If you want to stay close to family, Pittsburgh's only 4 hours away. His cousin played for Dan Muse at Yale, so we could get a little insight if you wanted to. But I don't think it's like an either or when in either situation the player has control about like where they go. And Robertson turning down was it $15 million a year to go to Seattle. I think that also tells you either he wants to stay in Dallas or he wants to go somewhere that is a more, sure contender. And the Penguins just aren't that right now. So the Penguins do have his brother. Some guys would prefer to win than play with your brother, I'd imagine. So Anthony says the first time he heard of the Ruck brothers was from my mention of them in one of the lives a week or so back. I know I mentioned them. We did the double shot the day of the draft. They asked me for like a couple names, and I think I gave 2 in the Rucks. So Brandon says you could have a Ruck, Kindle Ruck, British Columbia top line in a few years. They've been really good for a long time. They definitely fell in the draft. Maybe size was the reason. They're definitely slender. I think if they fell, I think it was probably more because, their agents were telling teams, we want to go somewhere together. Most teams were not in a position like the Penguins were to make that happen without, trading picks around. And you didn't want to take one and then, like, Liam was always going to be the one that went first. You didn't want to take Liam and then not be able to take Marcus. They've never played apart. They claimed that like if they had to, they could. Do they know that? But either way, it's going to be a little while before they're in the NHL. They're going back to the WHL next season with Medicine Hat. They're going to go to North Dakota the next year. Maybe they need one. At least 1 year in college, maybe 2, and then you're looking at probably starting in the AHL. It's going to be a little while, but when they make it up here, would seem like they have legit potential. But they do need to get bigger. But it's going to be they have ample time to do that. Cass says Letang still has 2 more years on his contract, doesn't he? Which could definitely be problematic. Yeah, he also no longer has a full no movement clause that started today. It is reduced to a 10-team. It's either 10-team yes list or no list. Either way, like something like that is pretty easily manipulated. Like, if he really doesn't want to go somewhere, you could make it so like the only teams that could take you are the ones that don't want you or don't have like the money or space for you. So there would be ways out of that if they really wanted to get out from Letang. Sean says, what happens with all these right-handed defensemen and wingers? You'd think there'd be some trade chatter out there. I mean, right now, if you count Van Riemsdyk, who plays on both sides and ideally is a seventh, they have 3 NHL right-handed defensemen, not counting Brunick, who's probably going to need some time in Wilkes-Barre. I don't think they have too many right-handed defensemen. It's just that they don't have any like good left-handed defensemen. But they do have too many wingers. But there is like trade chatter out there about how it needs to happen or it's going to happen. It's just not. There's not like specific names out there. And with the way Dubas operates, I don't think you're gonna get specific names. Cass says Daigle development camp updates. I gotta be honest, I did not watch development camp today just because it's happening the same time as free agency. Saw a little bit of it. The first locker room availability was at 11:15 a.m., which was, before free agency, so there's a little bit of time, but then it's like right when that happened is when they got Nick Robertson. But no, I mean, I haven't talked to Daigle yet just because they have all the goalies in the main locker room because they need more room for all their stuff. Whereas they have that's the NHL locker room. There are 2 like smaller adjacent locker rooms. That's where they have like the actual players during the camp. So the stuff that they've had the goalies doing, I don't think it's like a thing where you can talk about how they look. He also, I mean, if you look at the tournament, he should be the best one there. He's the only one who's actually been drafted. Zach says, any word if Jason Robertson would even sign with Pittsburgh, or if we even have the assets? I mean, I think if it gets to the point where like Jason Robertson is only willing to go to a few teams, that would lower like the trade, like the leverage that Dallas has. But it's a matter of would he want to come here. If he's looking to go to a contender immediately, that is not the Penguins. So. Florida is a Tom Wilson and Trouba away from fielding the most rat bastards team since the 75 Flyers. I mean, pretty much. They signed Lars Eller today. That feels like super out of place just with like what they're building there. He's very level-headed. Definitely not a rat. So I guess he's going to keep everyone in line. Anthony wants to know, will Archie be making a guest appearance tonight? That's my cat. Look, so that's the one that just jumped in the cat stroller. That's Willow. Archie's on the floor. I'm sure he'll come around. But yeah, that's Willow in the stroller behind me. Anthony says, is Burroughs a strong candidate to make the big squad this season, or is he a long shot? I think he's a long shot to make it out of camp just because of the number of forwards they have right now. The thing with him is like it felt like every time there's an opportunity for him, he's been injured, or like his rookie year he had mono, missed a lot of time. I don't know what's going on with them. He had mono, missed some time, and it's like by the time, even when he came back, he had lost something like 15 pounds from mono, and he needed time to rebuild that. So he was kind of really behind the 8 ball in his rookie year. And then he had a couple injuries this year. He missed a lot of time at the end. And then so he was like just coming off of injury by the time the last week of the NHL regular season came around. And so when they played those meaningless games, like he just wasn't available or like wasn't ready. So he's had some tough timing. Anthony says, any word on Wheeling? Can we still have an agreement with them? You can, but no word on who the ECHL affiliate is going to be. People who don't know, the Hoffman family owns the Florida Everblades, who have won 4 of the last 5 Kelly Cups. And the Everblades are affiliated with the St. Louis Blues. The St. Louis Blues have already gotten a new East AHL affiliate. The Penguins' agreement with Wheeling is also up. They've been affiliated for the last 29 years. That is the longest active affiliation in the league. It might be it's the longest active, might be the longest ever. 29 years for an affiliation is like unheard. That's crazy. The Hoffmans very clearly want to be affiliated with the Everblades. That's their baby. They were asked about, the Everblades situation by someone else in their introductory press conference, like they're keeping them. And Jeff Hoffman said, yeah, they're keeping the Everblades. They're still working out what happens at the East AHL level. For people who don't know, they could keep the Everblades, get the Everblades a different NHL affiliate. The Penguins could be affiliated with the Nailers. The Penguins don't own the Nailers, but that's not an issue. That would be fine. You look around the East AHL, there's one ownership group in the East AHL that owns 6 different teams, most of them in full, some of them in, partly part owners, but they're only affiliated with, and they own one AHL team that's affiliated with one of those East AHL teams. Point being, there's no that's not a rule. It's not like there's a conflict of interest. But so then at the end of the press conference, I circle back around, raise my hand. Now, if you watch that, I saw comments like low production value. They can only get, one microphone for the 3 guys up there talking at the press conference. That's, I think, because, Jeff was the only one supposed to be talking. He is the Penguins governor. But I raised my hand. I said, do you want to be affiliated, the Penguins and the Everblades? And Jeff looked like he was going to start talking, but then his father, David, who is the one I think more involved with the Everblades, he's only an alternate governor with the Penguins, said 100%. The people of Naples, Florida would run him out of town if they don't be affiliated because they already have people in Everblades jerseys at their games. I don't care what the people of Naples, Florida think. But anyway, it seems like, they very clearly want that. I think the front office, like hockey ops, they do not want that for a lot of reasons, just logistically. Getting people between Wilkes-Barre and Wheeling, very easy. Getting people between Wilkes-Barre and Estero, Florida, not easy. I asked Dubas about the state of that on Friday at the draft. He said they're still working through that. Something I thought that was interesting is, so to explain logistically, the coaches who are in Wheeling right now are Penguins employees. Ryan Papianu, Evan McFeeters, goalie coach Carl Popper. They are employed by Pittsburgh. That's not common for affiliation agreements, but it's the deal that the Penguins have with the Nailers gives them so much autonomy of over what's happening down there. That's why I don't get the people who are wouldn't it be nice to have full control? They have that already. They just don't own the Nailers. But then the Everblades, their coach is one the Everblades employee, and he's been there 10 years and winning 4 of the last 5. He's going to be down there. So, I guess, the Penguins would be his boss, or the Hoffmans would be, because, they own that team. But something Dubas said is they want to make if they're talking things over with, Florida, trying to figure out what's right, what's the best move. And they'd want to make sure that, if they were with Florida, that they would operate it the way that they want to use the East AHL affiliate. And he talked about the age. And that's because you look at the Florida Everblades, were they good? Yes. They also had an average age of 28 or 29 in a developmental league. They develop, career East AHL guys down there. They've produced guys who have gone on to play in the NHL too. But that's why, when people why wouldn't it be a good thing to be affiliated with the team that's won 4 of the last 5? It's because they're a lot of those guys, their key players at least, are not NHL prospects. They're it's a 31-year-old goalie. Whereas the Nailers, who went to the Eastern Conference Finals, lost to the Everblades, the youngest team in the league. Those are guys, actual prospects. Atlee Calvert played in Wheeling. He just got an NHL contract today with Pittsburgh. Long way to say no one knows. They're still working through that. But for a lot of reasons, it would make sense to keep Wheeling. User G12 says, have there been any surprises at the development camp? The stuff they have been doing for the first part of camp, they're doing like very detailed skating instructions or like some fitness testing. There've been a little like head-to-head stuff. It's not the kind of thing you look at, and some of the head-to-head drills you can take away like little positives, but nothing. Even in the tournament, no one should be making any like big sweeping assessments off this. The team doesn't use it like that. And like warning you now, the standout in the tournament, I'm sure, is going to be one of the undrafted invites who are here. That always happens. Those guys are playing for a contract. Not to say that the drafted prospects aren't trying, but it always feels like the standout every year is the guy who's an undrafted free agent, like college invite, and we never see him again. Like I was looking at some of the past names who are huge deals in like the actual gameplay parts of these camps. One of them, Josh Williams, he played 5 years of junior hockey, like went back for an overage season, and then 4 years of Canadian university hockey, which is like not very good. And that was last year. Hasn't signed anywhere, so doing that well in the Penguins camp didn't work out for him. And then the other one, Dayan brought up when we were on Double Shot. He wrote at the time about how like the Penguins needed to sign this kid, Jared Spooner, who was like incredible in the tournament. This is back when like Guerin was around. This was a while ago. I looked up like what happened to Jared Spooner. Never played a game of pro hockey, and he's currently like a Christian missionary. So a lot of paths for guys to take after they do well in these tournaments. Brandon says, Ryan Graves, AHL defender this year. I don't think so. I don't think he was bad enough to warrant that this year. When he got sent down out of camp, I don't think his preseason was fine. At some point even good. You want to talk about physicality? He like dislocated Kevin Hase's shoulder 2 minutes into camp with a hit. But no, he seemed to be shooting the puck more in the preseason. He was physical. But they wanted him to go down there and work on things, and he did. And then he comes up and he was good for like what you wanted as a third pairing defenseman. Ideally, he's not a third pairing defenseman with what you're paying him. But when he came out, it was like they traded Jari, got Kulak, who wasn't there yet, but then they because it took him a while to get here, but then they also at the same time made that Chinakhov trade. Chinakhov coming in, they needed to clear a roster spot because they didn't have anyone rostered going out. Danton Heinen went to Columbus on that trade. He was already in AHL. You needed to clear a roster spot for Chinakhov. It really only made sense for Ryan Graves, just like who was around. And then he goes down there. By the time he comes up, it's like he's not the same that he was before. And then he definitely was dealing with an injury at some point. I think it was his hip. That Western Canada trip, the Calgary one, I think that was like the last game he played. He was definitely already dealing with it before then. And then it's like he gets in a couple games at the end, and I don't think he was 100% healthy. He's apparently changing his approach this summer, as Betsy said. Don't know exactly what that means, but like he'll be better. Let's see. Like 20 minutes behind on these comments, looking at the timestamps. So can't get to every single one, or we're going to be here forever. Cass says, I wish Werenski wanted to move. Yeah, so people didn't see. That's not happening anymore. They put out a statement, the Blue Jackets. He's sticking around. R. Ravine says, did the Penguins making the playoffs skew Dubas's plans to full-on rebuild? Seems kind of pushed to add a bit with a beyond age core weird situation. He's been clear for a while that he doesn't believe in like full-on tear it down and rebuilds. And what he would always say is because like, there's no guarantee you come out of it anytime soon or it works. And like he didn't like specifically name teams, but like Detroit did the full tear it down, and like where are they now? They haven't made the playoffs since their captain Dylan Larkin's rookie year, and Larkin's trying to get out. Same thing with Chicago. Chicago moved on from Kane and Taves, and I mean they got Bedard. What else do they have? They're not back in the playoffs yet. But Dubas, if you go back to his season-ending availability and his comments, what happened in the playoffs showed him that they're like not close to being contenders yet. So it just kind of enforced the idea that they do need to make significant changes, but just by the nature of like what the asks are and what they have, it's going to take a while. Brick by boring brick is what he said, and what Spezza repeated today. Matt says, you're concerned about the size of a lot of the prospects coming in Wilkes-Barre. A line of the Rucks and Kindle is very slight. I don't think you can call Kindle slight. Like, he's not tall. But even like the start of the season, he was like more filled out, like muscular, I think, than a lot of kids his age. He's only gonna like keep adding weight. The Rucks, they're not short either. They're just slender, and given that they're at least 2 full years away from even going pro, I wouldn't be worried about it. And it's not like they don't know that that is their biggest weakness. So Anthony says, are there any interesting non-drafted invites at camp? Manon Rayom's son is here. Manon Rayom, the goalie, the female goalie that played a preseason game for the Lightning. Her son's here. I mean, like, as far as like interesting, who are they going to sign? I don't think they're going to sign any of these kids. They're a couple Sioux Greyhounds. Dubas loves his Greyhounds, but I don't. With the number of contracts they have right now, we talked about it if you weren't here. If they sign all their RFAs, barring trades, you're looking at 47 or 48. So they don't really have a lot of room to be giving contracts away. Maybe an AHL contract, because that doesn't count toward like the 50 limit. Gears King says, you're going to miss Stu and Achari. Hopefully we can find a guy to fill Achari's role. Do you feel like he should have been re-signed? If they would have re-signed him, I don't think it was like the worst. It would have been the worst thing in the world. I also think his age, they have a number of young guys who are pushing for bottom six roles. Like if you would have kept him without a bump Soderblom out, it made sense to move on. Anna doesn't like the Everblades at all. And does not believe that about the Naples people. Yeah, I don't think the people of Naples, Florida care too much about like the Penguins being their affiliate. I also heard that Buffalo has talked with the Everblades, because Buffalo, they did have an affiliation with Jacksonville. Jacksonville is now with Minnesota. I believe Buffalo is between Orlando and Florida. So it's not like the Everblades are even banking on 100% of being the Penguins, but yeah. John Denver said almost heaven, West Virginia, not almost heaven, Naples, Florida. So something there, right? Josh says, I have a vacation house in Naples. Never even knew about the hockey team. The thing, too, is the team is not in Naples. They're in Estero. I think that's how you say it. So Michael says Atlee deserved it. Atlee Calvert deserved the contract. Yeah. Not to toot my own horn, I was writing about this was going to happen like a year and a half ago. No, it was just clear, like, how quickly he adjusted to the pro game. And then, like, 2 seasons ago at this point, he started in Wheeling, he worked his way up. The way he adjusted in Wilkes-Barre, it felt like this was coming. I had a couple people tell me like he's the next Avery Haase after Avery got his contract. So very similar players, like in terms of style. Atlee Calvert has more size, more of a knack for going to the net, but as far as like the energy, being very good defensively, very similar. Atlee Calvert's production offensively took a leap this year. Something Spezza also said, and this is also something Avery Haase told me during the year, is that because he's so good defensively and he can play like that, Atlee Calvert is so good defensively and can kind of play up and down the lineup, he's kind of shoved into a fourth line role, not because he's not good enough to move up, but because he's kind of exactly what you're looking for in a bottom six guy. So he's in a situation where like maybe the offense doesn't come. He's not being put in situations like he's getting thrown out there for D zone starts. So, but he's still producing. So Cass is instantly off put by Caden Corsack because he has a golden doodle with its own Instagram account. Brian Rust's dogs have their own Instagram account. It's not active anymore, I think. And I also don't think it was Brian Rust running it. I'm sure it was like his wife. Rust dogs had an Instagram account. Mark says, how could they let fan favorite Boko go? Boko, I think he's 30, 31. He wasn't exactly a regular for Wilkes-Barre anyway. He really didn't play much in the playoffs. It makes sense. I don't know. So he's going to be a Charlotte Checker. You assume he's the affiliate of. They're the affiliate of the Panthers. I don't know if their situation is of if they have just more room for him, but it's probably something that benefits Boko too. I don't know if he wanted to leave. When I talked to him in playoffs, he did talk about how much it meant to him to be here, but probably something that's good for both sides. NBA superstar. Is it normal that Dubas didn't speak today? This suggests he's working on something. Dubas did not talk this time last year. The plan was never for Dubas to talk today unless they did something significant early in the day that would warrant him talking. What PR told us earlier in the week is like it's probably going to be Spezza talking on July 1st. It's not out of the ordinary that Spezza would speak to reporters. He talked during development camp last year. He's talked a few times on his own. I think it came as a surprise to fans that it was Spezza. They gave like an hour's notice. I saw like a reporter say like Dubas is talking at 4, and I'm like, oh, change your plans with Spezza. No, it was always Spezza. Dubas didn't pull out of anything. They just didn't do anything big enough to warrant Dubas leaving his office and walking down to the press room. So Cass does know about the Brian Rust dog Instagram. Beef with that too. Lars says, I wish they would have given Boko a better chance. He played well every time he played in the NHL. I mean, did he though? Like, he's physical, he dropped the gloves, but if you're trying to get younger, faster, more skilled, are you getting that from Boko? He was fine. He was also playing like 4 minutes a night every time he's up here. I don't think that's what you want out of your fourth line in today's NHL. You can have like a scoring line in your bottom 6. Like they should be physical, bring energy, good defensively too. It's not the end of the world. Boko, great guy, great to talk to. So during when I was there for the playoffs in Wilkes-Barre, back up. When Sid was hurt coming back from the Olympics, and you're on the road trips, he's sitting in the press box. If you're on the road and it's a building where the press box sits lower, where like the fans can turn and talk to you, Sid was getting like the fans are coming up and like giving him stuff to autograph and like trying to talk to him. Like, yeah, Sidney Crosby going to Wilkes-Barre. Boko is in like the press box. They don't have a press box, it's just like the upper level of seating. Same thing. During the game, fans are coming up to talk to Boko. He's not the only scratch up there, but he's Boko, and everyone loves him. So it's him. Says him. This is the same blood guy, different account, I guess. Dan says teardowns don't work, but the Ducks and Habs did full teardowns and won a playoff series this year. Sharks are building a wagon too. I think you can anecdotally name teams like that, but I mean, like I said, Detroit and Chicago did the same thing. And where are they? So, and I mean, Dan said, I don't know exactly what Dan said in that, but like Dubas is the one saying like they're not guaranteed to work. So, and he says the same account changed the name. We were arguing, I think, a couple shows ago whether it was the same person. Yeah, I don't think it's a matter of like, yeah, you I think you can pick teams in either way. The thing with the Penguins too is like you're not moving on from Sid as long as Sid wants to be here. And as long as Sid wants to be here, you have to try. Maybe once Sid's gone, depending on where they are, you can, but people ask about Archie, he's here. How do you feel about Boko signing in Florida? No comment. How do you feel about Connor Clifton going to Boston? No comment. I don't think he has any thoughts. No? All right, we'll put him down. Anthony says, if the Taylor Gauthier podcast gets off the ground, can we get your girl Taylor Swift to write the podcast theme song? I think she's busy. She has a lot going on. Taylor Gauthier has stuff going on too. No, the reason people don't know the reason, like, because like Dan used to do the show with Ramon Foster. I think people have asked like if there were a Penguins player, like former, current, whatever, who could be good at that. The cat's messing with my ring light now. Stop. He would just be great at it just because he's such a good talker. Like I went down to Wheeling. The video's on our YouTube if you want to find it. Like at the end of like their season and talk to him. And like I'm taking the video out. I also have to keep shifting hands, holding the camera because it went on for so long. So, Penn's Road Warrior. Why do RFA contracts take longer to get done? A lot of them are mostly simple too, just because there's no rush. No one's gonna offer sheet Ville Koivunen. No one's gonna offer sheet like Shilov's. It's like the draft pick compensation. Sheenikov too, just like the salary he'd get, the draft pick compensation probably not worth it. It wouldn't be anything like astronomical for him, but like just probably not worth it. There's just no rush. Like most of their RFAs, there's like zero reason teams would want. Like Ville Koivunen, I don't think any teams are going to be calling about Ville Koivunen. So you have their rights, you know that. You get it done when you get done. There's more pressing things to worry about. NBA Superstar says your guess at the D pairings as of today. I'm not going to do that because I don't think they're going to go into the season with these as their defensemen. Spencer was asked about how, you know, you have a decent number of righties. You really don't have any like great lefties. Any concern about that? And he's like, it's July 1st. There's time to move things around. So Spezza hinted at, or like just talked about the possibility of doing that. So I just think it's like a pointless endeavor right now to try to predict the pairings when I don't think these are going to, like right now, your top pairing would probably be Carlson and Girard, but should it be? I mean, Ryan Graves is your second pairing defenseman with Letang. I don't think so. I think you're going to bring in someone who's not here yet. Maybe that person plays on the top pairing with Carlson, Girard with Letang, and then Korsak plays with Slavyov. I think they're still going to make moves because, like, that's not that great. Arvine says, "What's your timeline on Spezza taking over as GM? Seems like he's getting groomed for the job. I don't see Dubas like Dubas giving up the GM title would be taking a step back. I don't see him doing that. They're paying him $7 million a year, Dubas. The contract he signed was 7 years, $7 million. I don't think you do that and then shift like half the responsibility to or like the day-to-day operations of like the actual hockey team to someone else. It's him says I won't harp on it any longer. That's gonna last, right? My one caveat is if you get a high pick and draft your next franchise player, they get to play with Sid. It worked great with Lemieux and Sid too. The Penguins have been like extraordinarily lucky that they have lucked into two generational talents. Like if you're drafting high, you're not. I think Penguins fans like seem to have this idea that like you're good, and then you bottom out, and then you get the next Lemieux or Crosby, and like it's just you're not gonna. They're generational talents for a reason. Two of the best to ever play. Even if you get the first overall pick, that's not a guarantee. Archie's back. Kat says he's the worst interview in the league. Do you have any thoughts on Connor Clifton yet? No. Nolachari? Not happy about Nolachari going to the Fires. Well, thanks for coming. Kyle replies, it's him and says Mary and Sid play together for like a month until Mary had to retire for heart condition. Also with Sid, you had 4 straight years of top 2 picks, so they all hit like they should. That's the other thing too. Like you had Fleury first, you had Malkin, Stahl too. So like they lucked into like a lot of good guys to build around Sid with. I mean, it was nice. Part of the Mary helping Sid was like when Mary like was not playing. He was Sid's landlord. I just don't think I also don't think Sid would be the type to like if they do get a prospect, Sid's gonna like zero in on that one guy and let him live with him and really be like his mentor. I just I don't think Sid's that kind of leader. Like he's the leader for everyone. I don't think it would be the kind of thing where he would like devote all of his attention to this one guy. It's him also says, I thought we were done with this. Seriously, though, imagine drafting Landon DuPont, Makar as speculated talent that instantly changes the trajectory of the team and a player you build around. I saw a projected list of the top 30 draft, the 2030 draft, the top 10 picks, and there's a guy named Ryan Graves in there. So you could also get the second coming of Ryan Graves if you draft high. So Cass says Archie got his love of media from Gino. He probably did. Big Gino guy. Josh is also accusing the NHL of fixing the lottery for to get City. He also says, just kidding. Anna says Macklin Celebrini was the last generational pick. They come once every 10 years. We got to wait a while. That's probably the closest thing. I think people talked about Bedard as being that. He hasn't had quite the same like breaking into the league that Celebrini's had. People also talked about like Shane Wright for a while. And he's like not even a good NHL player. Obviously, he didn't go first. It's him, says Macklin's brother's draft eligible in 2030, I believe. Yes, he is a projected number 1 pick in 2030. But there is a guy named Ryan Graves in that. He's a forward, though. Mark asks Ovechkin want to come play with Sid and Gino for his last season? I think the last thing the Penguins need is another winger, another older winger. I also think if you're Ovechkin, it's Washington or nothing. Fever says, hearing a lot of good things about Nick Robertson, 55 goals in 46 OHL games before COVID, the next Chinikov. I think that's kind of what they're hoping with a lot of these moves for the young guys, like in that age range, that they can unlock something from him. Like Chinikov wasn't getting the opportunity he should have had in Columbus. Something that both him and Soderblom and even the older guys have said, coming in, playing for Muse, he lets you have that freedom and trust to where they don't feel like if they make a mistake that they're going to be benched, because you really don't see Muse do that with like anyone. And for Chinikov, it has freed him up a lot more to actually play. And same with Soderblom. Soderblom told me in Detroit he was playing to not come out of the lineup, and here he's playing to just play his game. And we're seeing guys benefit from that. So I would be interested in like any of these young guys coming in, seeing if they can do the same thing with them. Matt says, what are your thoughts on captains of teams requesting trades? I think the guys you're seeing do it, Brady Tkachuk, the opportunity to play with his brother. Also, like Ottawa, it's not like they're becoming a contender anytime soon. Dylan Larkin, Detroit, he hasn't made he's, how old is he? At 29? He hasn't made the playoffs since his rookie season. How long does he? And it's not like Detroit is close to being a contender. Does he have to stick around and go down with the ship? At some point, the onus is on the team to build around him, and they're just not doing that. So, makes Dylan Larkin like the bad guy in Detroit, but how many opportunities did he give Yzerman to build around him? Caleb says, who do you see as possible pieces moving out in any potential trades? Novak would make sense because ideally he's not your second line center. Brazeau is expendable just because I don't know where he goes at this point with all the wingers they've brought in. I mean, like, there are very few young guys, like guy prospects who I would say are untouchable. Like looking at the guys who are in Wilkes-Barre, like the guys like that range. Like I think Miroshov should be, just because he's going to be like one of your 2 NHL goalies next season. But if like a team comes calling and it's like we want like Rutger McGroarty in that, or even like Owen Pickering, if the return is right and you're getting back a young NHL ready player, like yeah, you don't make a move like that for like a 28-year-old, but if he's like 23, 24, and he can come in and make an impact now, why not? Like we were talking about this back when it was like Bowen Byram, and it didn't look like the price was going to be that astronomical. And you're talking about like prospects, and I don't, so you remember that like Family Guy episode where they're like in a timeshare scam and they can have a boat or they can have the mystery box, and Peter's like, Lois is like, take the boat, and Peter's like, a boat's a boat. A mystery box could be anything. It could even be a boat. And that's what it feels like when people talk about like these young prospects with potential. Like if someone said like, you know, Harrison Brunick's like a no-go in a Bowen Byram trade back when that was maybe a thing. It's like Bowen Byram's Bowen Byram. But Harrison Brunick could turn out to be anything. He could even be Bowen Byram. That's what it feels like when people say, like, you don't move them. Or even like the high draft picks. I always go back to them. Declan Carlisle has a cute little Blenheim Cavalier King Charles Spaniel. Not important, but just wanted to put it out there. It's very important. I also saw pictures on Nick Robertson's Instagram of the Maple Leafs would do like a skills competition, like a fun thing. A couple teams do this. And part of that is like a dog race, I think it was. And his dog competed in that. Penguins don't do anything fun like that. Yeah, the Leafs do something like that. I know the Canucks do a fun little day like that. The Oilers do. Because remember what Cody Cece's dog was like a standout. Hugo, right? That's his name, Hugo Cece. I believe he recently passed away. The dog, not Cody Cece. Let's see. 78 Conjo comes in, Flyers fan who enjoyed the channel's coverage from the playoffs. Congrats on Noel Acciari. Great guy. Am I wrong in feeling like no Metro team is looking close to competing with the Canes? It's Atlantic loading up. Yeah, that's the thing. Like the Canes are pretty much rolling it back. It's the same team. Maybe even upgrades with the cap space they had. So that would be my pick to come out of the East. So it's him, says Miroshov, Horkoff, Brunick should be the untouchable prospects. But what if like you're trying to make a move for a 23-year-old defenseman who can come in now, still a young guy, make an impact, but like proven at this level, and also they say, oh, and we want Harrison Brunick. Why wouldn't you do that? Like you're still getting a young guy. You're getting a young guy back. Andrew says Steve Dangle brings up that reference all the time too. I don't watch Steve Dangle, but good to know. Caleb says I agree with Novak, but there's not really a replacement for second-line center internally or in free agency. There's really not a replacement for anyone in free agency. It's just a really bad market. It would have to be from a trade. Kyle says Carlisle's dog might be the most important piece of information for the Penguins this season. No, you know, it's the craziest fun fact of any of the guys they signed today. Nick Robertson was born on September 11th, 2001 during the attacks. Pretty crazy. He's done interviews about it before. It was like 10 to 12 weeks premature, I think I read. And he had a quote like he was fighting for his life the same time people were fighting for theirs in 9/11. It's him says depends on the 23-year-old defenseman. Yeah, no, 100%. You're not moving them out for like a bad player, but if it's someone who can come in and they're like make an impact now, and it's like an actual get, and the team is like, we want Harrison Brunick and like a high draft pick and maybe another pick too. Kind of accelerates the rebuild if you can get someone who's closer. Anthony says, I think the Oilers under Babcock could be a train wreck this season. Still can't believe they made him coach. Same. I saw people talking about how hard. You can win with hard coaches. I saw people referencing the Scotty Bowman quote that's like, the guys hate him 364 days a year and then they get their ring. Sure, like you can have a coach who's kind of a jerk and still be good, but Babcock hasn't won since 08. It's been a long time. It's like, yeah, he's a jerk, but we also don't know what kind of coach he is. Like he hasn't coached in a while. Or like found success as a coach in a while. It just feels like a crazy gamble. And Greeny, Kyle Dubas loves his guys. Are we talking about the Sioux Greyhounds? Because there's a couple of them at this camp. Mark says, has the Matthews trade talk died down? I didn't see any talk about that today for any team. I don't know if like there's really serious like reporting. It was always just like teams being like, what if this worked out? Wouldn't it make sense if like Dubas went after his guy? Yeah, I don't think it was ever like a serious like anything was in the works. Anthony says, been a while since I've been to the Lemieux complex in Cranberry. What's the concession situation like? Anything good? They have a lot of different wraps and sandwiches. They have pizza. I got a burger today. Wouldn't recommend. It was fine. It just wasn't. I've had better things there. They always have different kinds of pasta. Anything pasta I've gotten for them is pretty good. So it's a pretty good. And it like the chef, like who, like the concession area. It's the team chef, like the Penguin chef, also working at the like the food you buy at the complex. So you're eating the same stuff the Penguins are. Cass says, my favorite thing about the kennel that all the NHLers buy their poodle mixes from is that the kennel follows Gino, but he doesn't follow them back on Instagram. Gino's a cat guy. He had Dixie for years. It was like a long hair brown cat. I don't know what kind of cat it is. Brown cat. I say it died in like mid 2010s. Matt says the center depth is thinner than our winger depth. Yeah, I mean they have too many wingers at this point. And your centers, you're looking at Sid. I mean, like Gino obviously has played center for how long, but it seems pretty clear that they don't want him there anymore. So then you're looking at Novak, Kindle, LaPierre's a center. Is he your fourth line center? You want Dewar at center? Lazat can play center. It's not great. It could be better. Kyle says, do you remember the spicy pork and broccoli they served after the Louis Domingue quote? Yeah, so that was at the arena. That wasn't at the practice rink. That was at the arena. It was Nakama, whatever the Japanese food vendor there. I don't know if they're there anymore. But yeah, after Louis Domingue said he had spicy pork and broccoli in the playoffs, they like for the next home playoff game, they had that ready. Caleb says, what's your percentage chance of the Penguins trading for Jason Robertson? I know none of us know, but just for fun. 5? Like, because I don't know if he'd want to come here. Like, they have his brother, but not everyone is like the Kachucks or the Hughes. What do I think is wrong with Paul Skeens? You're on the wrong show, Mark. We're not talking Pirates, and I don't have an answer. Don't be asking me about baseball. Matt says, looking to come to camp on Friday. The tournament, is it looking like 3-on-3? I'd assume so, just like based off the like the number of players on the teams. Like, I got my yeah, like five forwards on each team, 5 defensemen on each team. It's got to be right. Should we make a pick? Who we think's gonna win? I mean, just looking at the goaltending alone, Daigle is on team Larry Murphy, whereas Barrasso and Rutherford there are 4 invite goalies. They're split between those teams. Larry Murphy has Travis Hayes, Ryan Miller, Liam Ruck, Quinn Beauchene, Charlie Trethaway, Tomas Galvis, the second-round pick from this year, and then you have Daigle, and then a couple of like invites to fill out that roster. Barrasso, I'd say meets him in the finals. Cale Dock, Carter Sanderson, Marcus Ruck, Peyton Kettles, Jake Livanovich. Say Rutherford, probably a long shot. Zamplant's the captain. You have Jordan Sharon, Pierce Bowie, Brady Peddle, Parker Von Richter. It's a weaker team for sure, but yeah, it's gonna be 3-3. I'd put, if you're betting, I'd put money on Larry Murphy. Let's see, catching up. Caleb says, when did you first get involved on reporting on the Penguins? Seems like a sweet gig. This was my 8th full-time season. I had 2 like part-time. I was really not around much at all before that, but 8 full seasons. Before that, I was doing like phone interviews with the guys in Wilkes-Barre and Wheeling. I would do 1 a week on each team. So by the end of the season, I've talked to every guy down there like at least once for a phone interview. I would do a feature. And then I just started like doing more and more actual NHL stuff, and then just got put on that full time. Do you pay attention to the Ice Castle Summer League? Some good names there. I'm aware of it. Is that the one they call the Goat League? It's like the Pittsburgh equivalent of the Beauty League. I have not paid attention to it, but there, if we're talking about the same thing, I know like Cooley's played in it, Trocheck, like the local Pittsburgh guys. Zemgus Girgensons, noted Ians there. People don't know Zemgus Girgensons, former Sabre, currently on Tampa. His wife is from here, so he lives here in the summer. He's been hanging around Artie Shelov's in the gym at the rink. Yeah, then he says, what a great name, Parker Von Richter. Great kid, too, talking to him. One of the more well-spoken, like more polite guy, like prospects in there. Reminds me a lot of Finn Harding. They play together in Mississauga Steelheads, later the Brampton Steelheads. But like in terms of play style, they're both defensemen, defensive defensemen who can chip in offensively too. Physical. Obviously, both played for the same team, but personality-wise, they strike me as very similar. Big compliment to Finn. Like I was talking to Nick Hart, the play-by-play guy for Wilkes-Barre, after I talked to Von Richter. And I told him, and I was like, he's just like Finn Harding. And he was like, oh wow, like that's great. Like that's great. He was like excited that you get another Finn Harding. What a compliment to Finn Harding that personality-wise, if you have another one, it's huge. Rob Bruno says, what do you like about the new management group? Ownership. I mean, it seems like they care. I think it's too early to really make any sweeping assessment because like Fenway said a lot of the good things too. Fenway did a lot of the good things. People didn't like them. They're faceless, people said, which I faceless to you, maybe. But like they always had a representative around. They were a blank check to Kyle Dubas. They new video board in the arena. They made other upgrades to the arena. The Hoffmans are coming in wanting to make upgrades to the arena too. They don't have specifics. That's the thing. Like going back to the introductory press conference, they said a lot of good things. There weren't a lot of specifics, like what do they want to do to like the former Igloo site and like building up the Hill District. They want to do it. They're looking at it. They're looking at real estate. They don't really know exactly what they want to do. David Hoffman wants to put in a hotel there. They want to build up. They want to do things to the arena. They didn't have specifics other than it's probably going to take a year for those things to be done. I know around the time Fenway put in the new video board, things they were looking at were, like the ability to do like the full ice projections. Like you see other teams do, like the Penguins can do like little lasers and lights and stuff, but other teams you can like project full video. on the ice. Penguins don't have the ability to do that. The other thing I know they were looking at, if you've been to PPG Paints Arena or even seen it on TV, they still have rows of Vegas gold seating. Like most of the seats are like a charcoal gray, but then every, I don't know how many rows are Vegas gold. They don't wear Vegas gold and haven't in a long time. They looked into replacing those. It was like extremely expensive. There's just a number of seats that they'd have to swap out. So maybe that's something they do now. But I don't know. They seem to care. They're going to be around. I don't know how much you're going to hear from them. Like people didn't like Fenway being faceless publicly. They were around there. Dave Beeston was there. Like he lived in Pittsburgh. He was there at every game, like road games too. Sean Henry would talk to Dubas regularly. Teddy Warner was, after Beeston got a new job, Teddy Warner was the one around, Tom Warner's son, but like they weren't speaking, they weren't getting in front of a mic and talking about the team publicly. I don't know if you want that. There are some owners around the league who do that, and it's a bit much. I don't think you want the owner super involved in hockey ops decisions, at least publicly, like talking about like what the team needs to do. It's the GM's job. And Nate says, "Can you tell the Ruck twins apart?" Most of the time, I feel, if like I was looking at a video they posted from development camp of like them doing fun off the ice things. It's a little hard from afar, from the side. If you're looking at them dead on, for sure. I mentioned it earlier, but if you're like up close, very easy thing is like Marcus has a bigger freckle above his mouth. Liam does not. He does have one on the side of his nose. Marcus wears his hair up higher. He seems to have more narrow features. Smile's crooked. Liam has a bigger smile, more rounded features. So there's little things. Anthony says, hate seeing Marcus Pettersson go to the Rangers. People who didn't see, he went to the Rangers for a 2030 first-round pick. Marcus Pettersson got traded for a 14-year-old today. Cameron Britton says, do you think Gabe Clausen gets a contract like Atlee Calvert, currently a free agent? Would love to see him re-signed. If they re-sign all of their RFAs that they've qualified, you're looking at 48 contracts. There's a 50 contract limit, 47 contracts if Alexeyev goes to the KHL, like he's considering. I don't like Aiden McDonough might be like a step ahead of Clausen. I just don't think they have room for all of them. I think what's nice for Calvert is that was a contract slot they had allotted for Cruz Lucius, who's just not going to sign with the Penguins. So that's a forward contract slot that's now open that they had ready for him. Anthony says Jeff is going to live in Squirrel Hill. No, I don't think any of them are living here full time. Any of the Hoffmans, I know they bought a house in Squirrel Hill, but the way I took that is that they're based in Florida. I think they have offices in Chicago. I don't know where all of them live individually, but like that's just to have for when they're here, so they're not staying in the hotels as much as they're going to be here. I don't think they're going to be living here full time. When you have the money they do, you can afford to have multiple houses in different cities. David Hoffman was the one who said the house comment, and he said, we bought a house. I don't think David Hoffman and his two sons are living in the same house. I think it's like a communal, the way it sounded to me was like a communal thing for whoever happens to be in town. Chad says, is Shea really a free agent now? What is the replacement plan? Ryan Shea is an Edmonton Oiler. What's the replacement plan? Trevor Van Riemsdyk? There's still the defense is not done. There were never great options on the UFA market, including Shea if you wanted to get younger, because he is 29. It was always going to have to come via trade, so I don't think the defense is especially on the left side is what it's going to be in September. Tommy says, I thought Dubas wanted to get younger. TVR and Kuzmenko, $4 million and $1 million. But if you listen to like what Spets said today, Van Riemsdyk was only signed for 2 years, Kuzmenko 1 year. That their thing is they don't want to be anchored to any older guys for term, because like say like Shea, you sign Shea for, give him like 4 years or 5 years, whatever he wanted to stay here. Then like what if Owen Pickering's ready a year from now, but you now have a spot locked up by Shea, or like Mantha. Mantha wanted more than 1 year. He wanted term. What if you give a spot to him and then a year from now, Bill Zonen's ready to come up, or like Will Horkoff's ready to come up, 2 years from now. Van Riemsdyk, it's the flexibility they wanted to maintain. Van Riemsdyk, 2 years. If he's your 7th defenseman 2 years from now, that's not the end of the world. Kuzmenko, that's the contract that they were comfortable giving to Mantha, but Mantha wanted term. So I think the Kuzmenko thing, that just tells you that they weren't confident in that many of their young players, forwards coming up right now. Maybe 2 years from now, they feel better about that. So it's not the way, if you listen to him talk, it's not like a steady like getting younger thing, but they need to get younger in the coming years, so they can't lock guys up to long deals. Kyle said at the trade deadline this season, Gauthier got the contract to be the 5th goalie on an NHL contract for emergencies. Who fills that role with everyone getting bumped up a slot? You don't need like you don't need a 5th. I think if you go into the season with your NHL contract, well, first of all, Daigle is under contract, so that is 5. He's coming in. But you're looking at the goaltending depth chart being Shilov's, probably Miroshov. They aren't outright saying Miroshov. They're saying he's going to battle with Blomqvist in camp. It's going to be Miroshov. AHL, it's going to be Blomqvist and Gauthier. And then Daigle is going to be playing in the ECHL, whether that's a Wheeling or the Florida Everblades. If he ends up in the Florida Everblades, we'll see if he actually gets to play behind their 31-year-old goalie who's been there for forever, Cam Johnson. So, no, but that's your 5. I don't think like, I know Dubas said they gave Gauthier the NHL contract to, like, just in case. They did that because he was playing insane in Wheeling, and he had an NHL contract before. He had an entry-level contract. They did not have room for it going into last season because Philip Larson was still around as a 3rd goalie in Wilkes-Barre. During the year, Larson asked to get out of his contract, went back to Sweden. So now there was a slot open. They give it to Gauthier. They reward him. The other thing with that is during the playoffs, a benefit of Wheeling being right down the road is they brought Gauthier up for the home games to be like the emergency 3rd goalie in case something happened to Skinner or Shilovs during warm-ups in the playoffs. So he did that at home, and then they had Miroshov do that in Philly because that's like a 2-hour drive from Wilkes-Barre for the first 2 games, and then for Game 6 it was Blomqvist. So they're set in goal. Cam says, if you had a guess, what does tomorrow look like as far as signings or trades? A good amount of turnover in the AHL, so I'm hoping some signings for Wilkes. I don't think you'll see any signings for Wilkes-Barre. I think you have enough guys coming in as it is. Like Bill Zonen, Brunick. You lost like Joona Koppanen. David Gustafson, the center you're getting, he's probably going to end up down there. Maybe Caleb Jones ends up down there. But the thing is, like, when they're at 48 or 47 contracts as it is, once they sign all their RFAs, they're not going to have the room for AHL level signings. They'll probably make some AHL contracted signings. Like they did that today. Because those guys are signed directly with Wilkes-Barre, not so they're not part of the 50 contract limit. What's the guy's name? Let me pull it up. I know he was 6'5". Ryan Mast. They signed right-handed defenseman Ryan Mast to a 1-year AHL deal. Most AHL deals are 1 year. 23 years old, 6'5", 220 pounds. He was originally a 2021 6th-round pick of the Bruins. He played 3 pro seasons. Last year, he was with the AHL's Rockford Ice Hogs. That's the Blackhawks affiliate. 14 assists in 46 games. So you might see stuff like that, but some of those guys on AHL deals also end up in Wheeling or I guess Florida, if that's what they're going to do. But also don't get excited. That's not like a Boko replacement, 6'5", 220. People might get excited. I looked up, he's been in 2 fights in his entire life. One in junior, one the AHL. Zeus is holy long stream. Yeah. It's been a busy day. We're not going to go that much longer because I wanted I'm binging Daisy Jones and the Six. I read the book. I read the book. I listened to the audiobook. The Penguins are having a little book club during the season. They're reading, I think Stuart Skinner was leading this, so I don't know what that means for the book club. I think Shea was in it maybe. Book club might be down to like just Ryan Graves. God, I forgot what they were reading. What's the Ryan Gosling movie? Ryan Gosling's in a movie, something with space. Someone will chime in, I'm sure. But that's what they were reading. Ryan Graves also recommended, I think they read it, either he did or they did as a group, Daisy Jones and the Six. I read it. Very good. It's an Amazon Prime original. Also, that's very good. It's like about... It's a fake. The show. It's like a documentary. Project Hail Mary. That's it. Thank you. A lot of people chiming in. Project Hail Mary. That's what the Penguins book club is reading. But Daisy Jones and the Six. It's like a fictional story presented. It's like an actual documentary about a band from the 70s that broke up. I'm not going to spoil anything, but it's very good. But then the book is the same way, where it's like interviews like 20 years later with the band members. It's pretty interesting. Kyle says, I wasn't aware that Daigle had an NHL contract. Good to know. Just wondered about the change with so many young goalies. Didn't see a veteran being okay with signing no real shot at the NHL and being a 3. Daigle was a draft pick, so like he signed him. He's going pro. The market for that kind of like veteran journeyman third goaltender this year was also very bad. There just weren't a lot of them, because typically you'd see a ton of movement. Like those kinds of guys who they're always like AHL, career AHL goalies. Maybe they get called up during the year. How many did the Penguins go through? Like Max Lagacé, Dustin Tokarski. They had Dustin Tokarski twice in different parts. Magnus Hellberg, Louis Domingue. There are not a lot of those guys left. I feel like a lot of those guys have just gone to Europe. Like Hellberg's back in Sweden. Tokarski was in Slovenia last season. But there's not a lot of guys like that who are available. Gautier's 25, so he's not like a rookie anymore. He's also not like a 30-year-old journeyman. You go into the season with Gauthier and Blomqvist as your goalies in Wilkes-Barre. Who's to say that Gauthier doesn't, play better? Are we making Ryan Graves puns? Saving Private Ryan Graves. 50 Shades of Graves. Yeah, Project Hail Mary was the Pack says, yeah, forgot about Daisy Jones and the Six. Started a few months ago and never finished it. Get on that. I think it's only like 10 episodes or like an hour. I don't know if you're talking about the book, but it's the book's good. The TV show's good. I'm a Pitt fan. Says, just jumping on now. Sorry if this has been addressed already. Do you see Jason Robertson coming to the Penguins? I don't think so. if he turned down $15 million from the Kraken, then it's not about the money. It doesn't matter how much money the Penguins have. Seems like he either wants to go back to Dallas or he wants to go somewhere that's like a more surefire contender. Penguins just aren't that. They have his brother, but like I don't think I mentioned this at the very start of the stream. You know, when they get his brother, people are like, oh, are they gonna try? Did they get that because of the Jason Robertson connection? They're trying to lure him here. They got him because Dubas drafted him in Toronto. And then like Spezza also, you know, was with Dubas in Toronto. Like they had a connection with him. They liked him as a player. Cass says it never occurred to me that you watch TV outside of Survivor. I really don't. I don't. I feel like I don't have a ton of time. I like the one-off series like this where like there's not going to be another season. It's basically just like a long movie. Hulu had a couple of those, like The Act, the Gypsy Rose thing. That's like 8 episodes. I like watching stuff like that because like I don't have to commit to it. But no Survivor. The only like other active like currently airing show that I feel like I keep up with is Sister Wives on TLC, the Mormon. Well, it was about a polygamous family, but his first 3 wives left him, so now it's just like a guy and his 1 wife and his 3 ex-wives. But I do watch that. Jim says, I heard other writers saying they got front office leaks about the Penguins' interest in Robertson. The people in the front office who matter don't leak. Like, at all. Anthony says, part of the fun watching the past draft was hearing the NHL Network crew trying to pronounce all the Euro players. Particularly funny was their attempt at Juuso Ainasto, if he's Finnish. Ainasto. Finnish emphasis goes on the first syllable. I mean, I wasn't like paying too much attention to the broadcast, but I know in day 2 they in like the was it the 6th round they were interviewing that fan because he brought a clipboard and like had his own rankings, just like a really big prospect dork. I don't say that like as an insult, but I think that's what you'd call someone like makes their own, because it was something like 100-something players deep. Like he went deep into the draft and brings a clipboard, and they kept showing him on the broadcast, like, you know, crossing guys off, and then they interviewed him on the panel. They said like Juuso and Asso. I think I feel like that's right. Finnish, like, there's only one way to pronounce every letter, and you pronounce every letter, emphasis always on the first syllable. Jim says, any thoughts on eventually changing Penguins games, how they will be aired on the TV, local or otherwise? So they're with Sportsnet Pittsburgh. That deal is for 1 more season for sure. The thing with Sportsnet Pittsburgh is that is like joint owned by the Penguins and the Pirates and like operated by Nesson. Nesson is Fenway. So Fenway is still like part owners and still operating the broadcast. But what's going to happen a year from now? Fenway, I'd imagine, not going to be involved. Owners were asked about that, the broadcast plans, in their introductory press conference. Nothing other than they're with Sportsnet Pittsburgh and the Nesson run operation for another year. They just said they want to have as many people able to watch the games as possible. They said a lot of things that sound really nice that just aren't specific, and that was one of them. So it's not. I don't think they know what they're going to do with it. So I don't know what they're going to do with it. Caleb says maybe Dubas is going through the brothers phase and collecting them like Infinity Stones. Have the Rooks, half the Van Riemsdykes and Robertsons. Time to get the other halves. I was it seems like everywhere brothers are trying to go play with each other now. That's a thing. I was talking to Brady Peddle today, one of their defense prospects. He's going to college next year. He played in the USHL like 2 seasons ago. But this past season, he moved from the USHL to the QMJHL. And I said, why did you do that? He said I could go play with my brother. They got his brother. It's like, that's a real risk these days, players having brothers. Like Zam Plant, people who didn't see. So Zam, he's the oldest of 3. Might be the least good of the 3. But anyway, so Max, the best of the 3, Detroit took him 2 years ago in the 2nd round. And then this year, their 3rd brother's draft eligible. Detroit takes him too. As soon as I saw Victor Plant come across like the draft ticker for Detroit, I'm like, well, Zam's never coming here, right? So they went to Zam and Max. So they were playing for Minnesota Duluth last year. Zam got there the year before. That was Max's freshman year. And then Victor is joining them at Minnesota Duluth next year. So they're all going to be teammates. But the Red Wings development camp is going on now too. And they were doing like podium press conferences. They had Max and Victor up at the podium. And I guess the question was something along the lines of like, is your 3rd brother gonna come here too? Now the 3rd brother is paying his property. But Max is like, oh, if he just goes back to school for 2 more years, he can be a free agent and join us here. Basically talking about like what Cruz Lucius did, wait out till his senior year, then you hit free agency that August. It's like, well, that doesn't, if you're like the Penguins, that doesn't sound great, right? Advocating for Zam to hold out, go back to school for 2 more years, and then sign with Detroit. But then a couple of us talked to Zam at camp. Was that yesterday? And he laughed it off. He's like, no, this is the team that drafted me. This is the team that like helped develop me. They put so much into me. This is where I want to be. He also said like, he's like, you have to tell Max to shut up once a week anyway. So he didn't seem fazed by it. His relationship with, if you listen to like the Rucks talk about each other, they're like, I love him so much. He's like, perfect. They don't fight. They don't do anything. The Plant brothers, very different. I remember like talking to Max at the combine a couple, like, you know, his draft year, and he talked about how like he was worried about being like roommates with his brother in college. They're gonna fight all the time, and like he made some like joke, like, you know, ripping his brother. But then yeah, Zam's like, yeah, you have to tell Max to shut up, you know, once a week. And then I asked because Victor's joining them, they're all forwards. I was like, are you gonna be on a line? Because Zam and Max were a great line last year. And it's like, is Victor going to be on your line next year? And he's like, we'll see if Victor can keep up. But if not, then he's out. Because I guess the other winger on that line last year is very good. So they have a relationship where they give each other a lot of crap. Seemed like part of that was Max throwing Zam under the bus at the Red Wings development camp. Cass says this is kind of like a podcast for me while I help move furniture into my friend's house. You guys got to ask some real good questions for me. I don't think this is going to go too much longer. It's almost 2 hours. I gotta watch TV before I go to sleep. And another day of development camp tomorrow. Pens for Life, Where's Your Kitty? Usually makes an appearance by now. Archie came around. I can get him. He came in earlier. We did ask him some questions. He didn't have much to say. Here he is. Do you have any thoughts yet on Connor Clifton going to Boston? No? I don't think he's happy about it. He's tired. Yeah, Willow jumped in the stroller. She's currently behind me sleeping on a chair. So, Jim says, how does it work for young Russian players in regards to those required to serve in their military in Russia or the draft? Is there a concern drafting or trading for young Russian players? Are Russians obligated? Like, do they? I don't have. The Finns do that. The Finns have mandatory military service. Usually they knock it out over the summer, pretty early on in their careers. Like I know Blomqvist, the first year he was supposed to come over for development camp, it was like iffy whether or not he'd be able to come. He ended up getting leave from his military service. I know Puustinen got his done pretty early too. So the Penguins have 3 Finnish prospects who aren't here for development camp. Joona Väisänen, Amo Jarventy, and then Kalle Kangas. They're not here. I don't know if that's a military thing or if that's just Joona Väisänen had an ACL injury. He tore his ACL during the season, so I don't know if that's it or if they have a military thing, but it's not an issue. Riley says, "Do you think the Penguins will trade Carlson?" No, he has a full no movement clause, and I don't think he wants to go anywhere. He loves playing for Muse. So Anthony says, "Archie not talkative tonight." He's it's past his bedtime. Sam, well now he's talking, right? He's crying. He had like a big sigh. Like, what have you done all day? Sighing like he has like a full-time job. We just officially hit the 2-hour mark. Feels like a good time to wrap this up. Because I don't know who's sitting here for full 2 hours of this, and I gotta get stuff done and wash my hair before development camp tomorrow. It's gonna be another long day. Starts at 9. I saw the last media availabilities at like 3 o'clock or something like that. So it's another full day at the rink. But a bunch of people saying thanks. Thanks for sticking it out for people who did. If they do anything, like we're gonna have double shot tomorrow at 3:30, so I'll be on with Dan for that. Yeah, depending on what time we get out of the development camp tomorrow. And it was like iffy today whether or not it would conflict. Either way, if they do anything big like the Penguins, I would do another evening live shot. It's worth talking about, but like a trade. But yeah, thanks again. I guess make sure you subscribe because like we don't have like a schedule for when we do these bonus live shots. I try to give a heads up on the site. I put it on the feed, so I guess make sure you're I sent out an app alert. So if you have the app, you'll get a heads up that way. Or I also tweeted it on the company account. I think if you're subscribed to our YouTube channel, it notifies you maybe. So make sure you're doing all that so you don't miss any of these. Because we have fun here, right? We interview the cap. So thanks again. Keep an eye out for, I'm sure, a bunch more free agency coverage. I have like 5 or 6 prospect features from development camp I haven't written yet because it's been so busy, but lots more coming. A couple more of these videos coming before we get into the real dead period of the off season. So thanks again. Subscribe in all the right places so you don't miss these in the future.